In the last video, you quilted your name, the ABCs, and did a series of C's that turned into curls and swirls to get warmed up and start getting the feel of your machine. Now I want to show you some advanced practice techniques that will take your quilting to the next level. The first thing you want to do is make a grid. Just quilt some straight lines, vertical and horizontal, section them off, and the idea is to fill each square with quilting, or each rectangle as the case may be. The next type of quilting I want you to try is the meander. Meandering is simply quilting across the quilt. Move the machine just like you're doodling or writing. The trick to a meander, which can also, as it becomes smaller, is considered a stipple, is to make your stitching look like jigsaw puzzle pieces or the letter E. As you can see, the stitching never crosses itself. It's always moving, and you want to go in and out so that it doesn't appear linear, and then practice getting smaller and smaller. If you get it teeny tiny, where you're down to maybe about 1/8 of an inch or less between the curves, that's actually considered micro stippling, but that takes a lot of practice, so I don't expect that in your early days. The next thing I want you to try are a series of loops. Just take the machine and do loops. What you want to try for is smooth movement, round circular loops, and then throw in a few that are a little more linear. Either is fine, it's all up to you, it's your quilt. Once you feel comfortable with loops, instead of rounding the loop, put a point on it. Make sure that you're stopping for that brief microsecond at the bottom and come back, and suddenly you have nice leaves. Wander off in different directions and keep that machine going. The whole point of a long arm machine is to have continuous quilting. And after I roll the quilt, I'm going to show you some more tricks that you can do. Remember those curls and swirls that I had you practice in a straight line in the last video? Well, now I want you to put them into the box. And as you can see, they don't all have to be exactly alike to look beautiful. As it goes across the quilt, it starts taking on your personality and your flair for quilting. The biggest thing to remember is make sure that you're filling the box evenly and that you don't have large gaps around the square. Remember the ABCs? Well, they're back again, except this time you're just going to quilt segments of it. ABC, D, E, F, G, X, Y, Z, whatever you want, and connect it with a little bit of a meander. And meander over and do that next little segment, meander some more. Or get even more fancy and connect it with loops. Just loop around to that next segment, and before you know it, you filled up the square. And this would be a beautiful design to use on a little baby quilt. You're quilting, and all you did was do something that you're already familiar with, writing your ABCs. Now that you're comfortable with that, I want you to go ahead and try some stars. 5-pointed stars, just like you did in grade school. But as you come to a point, do that microsecond of stopping, and then come on back, go into some curls and loops, and make some more stars. Wherever you want a star, throw it in. And before you know it, you've got another fun design for a picnic quilt, a baby quilt, whatever the occasion may be. Keeping those micro points in mind, I then want you to come over and try making hearts. Again, you're going to do that microsecond at the dip in the heart, and then again at the point. Come out, meander around, make another heart, and keep going. Or, as I told you before, use the loops. The loops have a little more sophisticated look. I think they're a little more polished, a little more whimsical, and they also tend to fill the space a little more than the meander. But try them both, see what you're comfortable with. After that, just keep practicing these things until you're comfortable, and then put on an actual quilt and try doing some stitch in the ditch and combine it with your other quilting. The reason I want you to use a quilt rather than a cheater cloth or more cloth like this where you've done the division lines is because as you quilt over a seam or as you do stitch in the ditch next to the seam, it has an entirely different feel than flat fabric. And it is important to practice as you want to quilt, because then when you quilt, it will be as you've practiced. So I wish you the best of luck, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that new long arm.